Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and end this poll. Again, thank you all for doing that. We have lots of PDAC attendees and then big different mining conferences there. That's the exciting part about the mining industry, is that there's so many different conferences. So before we start, I just have a few notes. We do have a free trial for Prospector going on during PDAC, so you can use the power of Prospector completely free. And we also preloaded some assets for you to save you time, which is really exciting. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that in the chat, so you guys should all see that now. If you want to follow along, you can go ahead and sign up for that now and see the preloaded assets, and I'll also show those in a little bit. Also note that this webinar will be recorded. So we will be sending replays out in case you miss anything, or you want some more instruction on, what happened while you were signing up for your chat or for your free trial. And then if you have any questions before, well, right now, or during the webinar or after the webinar, you can feel free to add them to the chat box. I see some of you are already using the chat box, so you have full access to that. And you also can use the Q&A box. That should be enabled as well. And I'll also drop my email there, so you can email me after the webinar if you have any questions. My name is Jess Scanlon. I have a background in mining geology, and I'm the head of new media here at Prospector. Today, I'm joined by Emily and Steve, and I'm going to go ahead and have them introduce themselves.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Emily. I'm a founder of Prospector and CEO. I'm a geologist by background, and I'm excited to share this with you guys today and hopefully see a lot of you at PDAC in a few days. Steve?
My name is Steve DeJong. Thanks for having me on this too. Excited for the conversation today. I'm the CEO of VRIFY Technology, and I'm the chairman of Integra Resources. My background is more in capital markets, with e-commerce, but used to run a exploration turn development company, and then decided to try my luck at running a technology company which services the mining sector.
Awesome. Thank you both. So to start off with, Emily, I know that PDAC is one of your favorite mining conferences every year, as you were talking about before. So what makes it so different in how you prepare?
Yeah, I think PDAC is definitely one of my favorites, largely because you have every different part of the mining industry coming together at one conference, right? You get the prospectors, you get the bankers, you get the service companies, everybody is all together at one conference, which makes it really fun. And because everybody is coming from all over the world. So I know for me, it's a lot of fun because every year I know I get to see like my friends that have been doing cool exploration projects in new countries or off having fun adventures in some crazy land. So it's like the one opportunity where, you can kind of see everybody in one place, or most people in one place. But I think that's also what makes it so overwhelming, because it's the largest mining conference in terms of attendees and companies. So just how do you get yourself organized to make sure you don't miss that great technical talk you wanted to hear or see your friend's presentation? How do you make your way through the investor hall and the core shack, which Jess, I know you're most excited about going through. And that's actually kind of what was part of the idea for Prospector back in PDAC 2019. I was walking the investor hall with some friends and colleagues, and we were talking about doing a project together. So we were looking for projects with a really specific profile, specific commodities, countries, and stages. And we were literally walking around all the booths, taking brochures, making notes in our notebook. And then at the end of the day, we'd all go back and input stuff into our own personal Excel spreadsheets. And you'd forget to get someone's business card. You couldn't follow up with them. A lot of the times the companies had just come out with a new 43101 or JORC or a new press release right before PDAC. So all the prep work I had done before was already outdated by the time I went up to the booth. And then the follow-up was also hard because you had to kind of manually follow all of these companies and figure out what they were doing. And so I thought at that time, there really should be an app for that, right? Like we should be able to follow all of these exploration and mining companies, see their tech reports, see their press releases, and kind of get their updates as soon as they came out. So that's really what led to the idea of Prospector. And here we are now gosh, 4 years later, I guess. So so that's really what I use Prospector for, is to do the research ahead of time on the companies that I want to make sure I stop by and see and check out, and then create lists so that I can follow those companies and projects as they evolve, and capture notes and feedback. So I make sure to follow up with them after the conference. And I definitely love the fact that when I create all that in my Prospector on my laptop, which is easier for me typing and filtering and doing all that stuff, everything in that My Prospector account goes straight to my phone. So when I'm actually physically walking around PDAC, I can reference all of that in my phone because I'm not hauling my laptop all over Toronto. So I think that's what I'm excited about at PDAC and how I use Prospector.
Awesome. Thanks, Emily. And we will show you all how to do that in the demo shortly. But first, Steve, I have to ask you, with mining conferences like PDAC being a huge and exciting part of the industry, why is it so important to embrace technology platforms like VRIFY to ensure people and companies make the most of their time, investment, and energy? How does VRIFY enhance communication within the mining industry?
So I think just before I even answer that, I think like one of the things we do at VRIFY is we're big believers in that the way that conversations take place right now between companies and investors, or companies and stakeholders and community groups, however, that we're using kind of broken tools. In that, if you think of kind of trying to put everything that we're trying to do in this complex, complicated industry, and there's 2,500 companies all trying to get everybody's attention, but we're screenshotting and putting it into PowerPoint. It's almost like we're putting everything through this filter that dumbs everything down to a point where it really kind of hurts your ability to have a real conversation with somebody. And the flip side of that is when you start adding like complex 3D models and virtual reality tours and things, you can actually end up making things more complicated as well. And I think the way that we all need to approach these conferences and these conversations, and the conference for the most part is just a series of conversations, whether it's at the actual events or at some of the at the conference hall or at some of the events after. We really need to approach them from a place of what do we want to get from the person that we're having a conversation with, and what does that person want to get from me? Like I've done a lot of these conferences in the past, running a mining company, and you stand there and you kind of you're standing there watching people walk by, and you want to make sure that anyone that you spend any time with is worth your time, because we feel so entitled to our own time, and that they're not trying to sell you something and so on. But the reality is, especially at that sort of like a very like the demographic of something like a PDAC conference, we have 30,000-40,000 people from, like as Emily pointed out, the whole spectrum of geologists right through to like to high net worth individuals and so on. It's actually an incredible opportunity for you to have a conversation with and learn about what everyone's perception is of your company. Because what happens is you stand at your booth and you kind of think, like, you go through this process of like, is this person worth my time talking to? Are they going to buy some of shares in my company, and so on? Whereas like you through a series of conversations that you have in the day, you can actually get a ton of feedback about sort of what people know and don't know, and what perceptions they have of your company and your project. And I actually don't think that we sorry, when I say we, I mean those are the companies that have booths there spend enough time actually trying to get something out of the conversation, versus just kind of puke the pitch and then kind of see if they can kind of buy some shares and move on. And when I think back on my own time at these conferences, it's like it was a massive missed opportunity to like learn more about sort of what the perception is of my own company, because all of that can feed into my ability to market my company better in the future. And like for VRIFY specifically, we spent a lot of time doing this. It's like, how do you transform what is a typical investor pitch? As an example, like think of kind of standing in front of a room of investors or at a boardroom table. You pull out your paper PowerPoint, and then you make everyone follow slide 1, slide 2, slide 3, and you go through it. How do you transform that more into, well, what do you want to see? Because you're an engineer, you're a geologist, you're kind of running a family office, whatever it may be. How do you position yourself and create a conversation that really addresses what they want to get out of it, but at the same time allows you to learn a little bit too? Because if you do a lot of these pitches and a lot of these conversations, it's going to completely, if you let it, it'll feed into how you communicate your story, regardless of the audience. So it's the one thing I was thinking about trying to think of somewhat borderline intelligent to say about how we can all get the most benefit out of PDAC. And it's something when I look back at my own time, kind of spending time in a booth and at conferences and so on, I didn't ask nearly enough questions. And I sort of, the second somebody moved into the realm of like, they're probably not an investor, or they're not like a meaningful investor, I would almost write them off, as horrible as that sounds, and then kind of look for the next, to get out of that conversation into the next one, when there's actually so much benefit you can get from this ability to sort of canvas the broader market and understand how people view your project and your company.
That's great, Steve. Thank you for all that information. And just a small plug here as far as communication, like you were talking about, we have you on the Rocks, which is getting released tomorrow. So we talk a lot about that. Well, Emily and Steve talk a lot about that on the podcast that comes out tomorrow. So excited to have that out. So I'm going to go ahead and shift my screens around here. I'm also going to launch a poll while I share my screen. So bear with me for 1 second here.
I want to know if anybody answers, just really depends what I'm in the mood for, like how your mood impacts your commodity choice.
You never know what you're feeling that day. Awesome. Right. All right, but we are seeing my screen, just to confirm. Okay, cool. Awesome. So this is the Prospector platform. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys just a few more minutes to answer that poll question while I just kind of go through it. We consider Prospector to be the search engine for the mining industry. So any publicly listed company on TSX, TSXV, ASX, and a few other stock exchanges, they have projects and company pages listed here on Prospector. Any publicly listed company with public disclosure data, we have on Prospector. So you can see in the last year, we had 2,638 projects total. We have over 10,500 projects, which is a lot of mining projects to look through, right? For you guys that are all looking for all these different projects to fit your need and everything, we can actually do that on Prospector. So if you don't have a project in mind for what you're looking for, or you're not quite sure what projects fit your needs, we have advanced filters on Prospector that really make that easy for you. So you can search by the project name or company if you know exactly what you're looking for and exactly what you want to know more about. But you can also use these filters by region or country, primary metal, project stages, last update on project. So I have that set to 1 year right now. But again, if you're looking for those 2023 projects, again, we have taken that time to pull all of the 2023, the brand new technical reports out for you. So again, I'm going to drop that link in the trial, or that trial link in the chat again, and that will come preloaded on your list. So we have this list for you. We also have some saved NPVs for you and a saved search. So you'll actually be notified when a new technical report comes out. So that's really, really handy while you're at PDAC. We have taken the time to set that up for you to make it really nice and easy. But back to the project searches here. So considering you guys are all into copper and gold, we can type that into the minerals here, or you can scroll if you want, but we have a lot of commodities here. So I'm just going to go ahead and type copper, gold. Awesome. I'm actually going to look for projects in the PEA stage. Any project that is PEA stage or above, Prospector has actually taken the time to pull life of mine data from, and you can use it in our built-in NPV calculator, which is really handy. And I'll show more about that in a little bit. We also can search by mineral estimate levels or region. I'm going to go ahead and pull one out here from Colombia. So y'all can see how quickly those massive amounts of projects narrow down to projects that fit exactly your criteria. We went from over 1,000 to just 2 projects that fit exactly what we're looking for. All right. So all of these little Prospector icons on the map here are all projects. We also have them in a list here. If you wanted to save both of these, you can just click this button, or you can click them individually. There we go. You can export this information to a CSV. You can add to a list, or you can add tags. And I'll go into a little bit more about those soon. But we're actually going to navigate to a project page here on Prospector. We just click that little icon, click it. We're going to jump right into it. Awesome. My internet is really slow when I'm running Zoom. I've got 3 screens going, so. But again, any project that has public disclosure data is going to show up on Prospector. And you can see we take a 300-400 page technical report and we condense it down into this easy to navigate project page. So the project page has a little bit of information about the project. We scroll down to ownership and a map. And I really like that this map is actually interactive. I personally like to know what infrastructure or waterways, et cetera, what towns are close to the project. So I know where they're going to be getting their electricity from, who the people are around them, et cetera. We also scroll down and we actually pull the technical reports out. So you no longer have to navigate CDAR to search through technical reports, which I don't know about you, but it's a big bonus for me. We've made the technical reports really easy to navigate. So you can search by section up here. You can do Control F, or you can use this magnifying glass to search exactly like a term that you're looking for. And we've also taken the time to pull out the document tables and the images. So that's really handy if you're just looking for something quick and easy, or if you just want to know the particular section. We've taken the time to pull all of that information out for you. All right, and again, any project over the PEA stage has a life of mine plan. And I'm going to go into that in just a moment. We're going to keep scrolling here really fast. So we also pull resource and reserve data for years going back to 2016. So you can see how that works. We can also export this resource and reserve data to CSV, print to PDF, and show charts. So these are the different charts that we offer. So these yellow dots here are the project itself and the resources and reserves and how it compares to its project peers. So you can see where the project lies in the world of the similar mining projects. You can also see how resources and reserves have grown and changed over time, which is really handy. Now, really quickly back up to the life of mine. All of the life of mine data is cited back to the documents that it's pulled from. So you can click any of these blue numbers and see exactly where those numbers are coming from. We've also made it really easy to do back of the napkin NPV calculations. So we can open our NPV calculator built right into Prospector here, no more using Excel and such, to pull information. So we can actually flex these numbers and change how this NPV looks. So we know that we want the taxes to be maybe 30%. And you can see that this chart is changing here. We also have a waterfall chart that you can see how it's changing as well. I'm going to go ahead and adjust another thing here. 0.39. There we go. And you can see how this is affecting the NPV. Let's just adjust a couple more assumptions. Let's go down to 1,600 gold and $21 silver. So you can see how the NPV changes based on these inputs. And this is really nice. You can save this NPV. You can take it right up to the booth at PDAC and discuss your concerns or questions that you have with the people right there. You can also export it as a PDF to save maybe on your tablet or your phone, or you can print it if you're wanting to go back to paper, which is really handy. Let's go back out to the project here. All right. We don't invest in projects generally. We invest in mining companies. And so we make it easy to also go to the company page. And again, any company that is publicly listed on the TSX, TSXV, ASX, and other stock exchanges, they have a page on Prospector, whether they like it or not. This is all public disclosure data that we have here. So we have some basic information, just like the project page, a map of the different projects available, as well as a list that you can click into any of these and be taken to that project page. Basic stock performance and news, reserves and resources for the company as a whole, and board members and executives. I really like this section for PDAC because it kind of gives you an idea of who you might be talking to at PDAC. So if you know their CEO is going to be there, you can learn a little bit more about their CEO and frame what questions you might have for them, which is really, really nice. If you're interested in keeping an eye on these, you can actually create a new list to follow. So let's just say PDAC 2023. And that'll save it to a list in your My Prospector tab. You can also add notes for this project like meet at PDAC, any questions you have, etc., and tags. So let's just go the PDAC tag. And like Emily said, all of these are saved in your My Prospector tab. Make sure I'm good on time here. So you can see we've got our PDAC lists here. And again, any saved NPVs, and all of these are accessible on your mobile device. And we can go into a little bit more about that in the question section if you guys have some more questions. All right, back to the basic company page. We also have, there we go, upgraded company pages. So you'll notice that this upgraded company page looks a little bit different. For a small fee, companies can actually put their social media, their corporate presentations, reports, video media, and verify presentations, which we will get into in just a second, onto their company page in Prospector. And this just gives investors a little bit fuller of a view of what the company is doing, what their priorities are, etc. So with that, I'm going to actually hand this over to Steve, once I stop sharing here, to talk more about verify presentations.
So I'll keep this quite brief. I'm not going to go into everything that VRIFY does, but it's more how we communicate information and how companies and both companies and investors and other stakeholders can benefit from using something like a VRIFY presentation. So this is a traditional mining company pitch deck. I'm sure there's an AI algorithm that can just generate this stuff in 30 seconds now. They all kind of look the same. When I say mining company, it's probably a little bit more on the mineral exploration side, but it's just a series of cross sections and maps and so on. And typically what happens, and you'll see a bunch of booths with stuff like this, people go through these presentations and they say things like, as you can see here, whereas like most people, even if you have a PhD in geology, are looking at this, it's not like, even if you understand what it means, you don't really understand how it applies to you as a potential investor. What does this actually mean for you? And I'll use this example specifically to show how information communicated in more of a 3D interactive format can completely change. And this is what we at VRIFY do. We're really trying to arm the entire mining sector and the companies and anyone that's pitching with it to unlock understanding for those investors and stakeholders that they're always speaking to. So this is a cross section. When we put this into 3D, and anyone following along now, you'll see it'll take 30 seconds or so to download this, but you're going to see the full resolution version of this. This is what that cross section looks like sitting in space. So here it is. It's sitting on a mining on the actual plan map for this company. Now, when I zoom into this cross section, all that you actually need to know as an investor, and this is real content from a real company, is that a whole bunch of really smart people and a bunch of previous mining companies spent a whole ton of money to identify that between these two dotted lines here and here, there's a 200-meter wide zone where mineralization tends to occur. And if you look at all the drilling that's ever been done on this project, and there's quite a bit of it, as you can see here, what they did was they defined this resource, and the green and the blue and the red is what's called a block model. And what they found is that sort of all of these blocks, which are just made up of thousands and thousands of little cubes, all of those blocks and the resources that they found, they tend to occur within that 200-meter wide zone between those two dotted lines. And all this company wants its investors to know is that when the company that was here before them was drilling it, they didn't drill deep enough. And these white lines represent the drilling that's been done in the past. And this company is going to go and they're going to extend these holes down here into the zone. And all they're trying to do is to see is that they can find the high grade roots to this kind of gold and silver system. And the whole objective here, and by using something like an interactive tool like VRIFY, is you can actually take complex information, things like this cross section, and in 30 to 60 seconds, break them down to a point where they actually make sense. Otherwise, every conversation that takes place is essentially kind of, here's my pitch deck. Let me walk you through. Here's a cross section. We're really excited because there's some green and some blue on it. Here's a plan map with a whole bunch of information on it. And what we do at VRIFY is we're just trying to unlock a level of understanding that allows for a much more informed conversation. And we do that by taking all of a company's contents and putting it into 3D. So in this example, this is from a development stage gold company in Idaho. There are two deposits. There's one sitting here, and then there's this 8-kilometer access road, and there's a second one sitting over here. And if I zoom in on that second deposit, you can see from the satellite imagery that it's been historically mined. There's 2 open pits. We can transition to a high resolution drone image of that. And you can see there's these 2 old pits, and about 30 years ago, someone went through and mined it. But what's really important for this company, and sorry, I'll zoom back in there, is to ensure that as they advance the project, it's to communicate to other groups how this will impact the local community. So you can sort of just see in the background here that there is, it's lower res, but there's a community that sits, and it's just a small seasonal community of about 500 people. What this can be used for is to show that when this thing goes into production, if and when it goes into production, from the community's viewpoint, they're never actually going to see it. And the reason for that is because it'll be mined on the other side. It'll be mined on the other side of the mountain. And what we found is when we arm companies and train executives at these companies to use a tool like this, every single conversation you go into is different, because you might be speaking with someone who's a geologist, and all they actually really care about is they just want to understand for the resource, what does the actual core look like? And what is the difference between sort of the unoxidized material and, say, the oxidized material? Whereas meeting with somebody who might be from a local group or from the government or other things, they want to spend time talking about the impact your project might have on the community. Whereas others, maybe they want to spend a little more time getting into the actual geology or the engineering plans and so on. What we do at VRIFY is we arm companies to, and I'll zoom out here. What we do is we arm companies with the tools they need to facilitate any type of conversation. And instead of, here is my set deck of 12 slides, and whatever question you ask better fit within the sort of linear set of slides that I'm going to try and take you through, we change that from what are you as an investor or you as a stakeholder trying to get from a conversation, and I will use whatever tools I have at my fingertips to facilitate that. And we kind of describe our content. It's a bit like a hop on, hop off bus tour, where it's a preset set of stops you can take somebody through, but everybody looking for something different. If you're speaking to a family office that comes by your booth versus someone who's looking for a job on site and wants to know what it might look like, your core shack, the inside of your core shack might look like, those are 2 very different conversations. We can step off the bus at any point in time and facilitate that. VRIFY works now with about 130 companies, between 5 and 10 more companies joining the platform every month. So there's a lot of interactive content. And one of the things that we're starting to push now is the ability for companies, instead of just sending their investors interactive presentations, to actually record themselves going through it. And what we believe is you're going to see, if we're successful in helping set the entire industry up to use this tool, I think you're going to see a complete shift in the level of understanding that people have of what our sector does. And that goes down to sort of understanding the geology of individual projects and the catalyst that investors want to know, to the bigger picture stuff like where does copper come from, that's going to fuel the transition to renewable energy that the whole world is going through right now. So I'll leave it at that, but I think it's a lot of like how our view on how to approach setting yourself up at a PDAC conference or any conference is in line with how we think companies should approach every investor meeting, whether it's something that's more webinar style or something that's a closed boardroom, is really understanding what the audience is looking for and then facilitating that, instead of just, here are my 6 points that I need to get across and you better shut up and listen. Back to you, Jess.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that, Steve. If you want to stop sharing your screen, there you go. Awesome. So yeah, so if you guys haven't answered the VRIFY poll yet, one of you answered wing it, which I mean, I'm just kidding. No, so that was all great conversation, Steve. Thanks so much. We are going to pause for some quick questions. Again, you can put them either in the chat box or the Q&A box. I've got an eye on both.
Yeah, and I think you'll be able to tell if it's a Verify booth. A lot of Verify companies, what they do is they just set up a TV or projector and then just walk around with a remotely connected iPad to help facilitate that. So hopefully you'll be able to, when walking around, for anyone walking around the conference, the ones using Verify will pop out for you.
Yeah, no, that's great. And hopefully you'll have Prospector on your mobile to take notes while you are doing your stuff there. Ooh, we do have a couple questions. All right, Steve, what do you think makes you stand out the most at a conference?
The honest answer is a rising share price. That's
All right.
Yeah, what makes you stand out the most? Like, I don't think any tool whatsoever is gonna like fundamentally like change like a company that's actively drilling and has a lot of news flow. PDAC tends to be a little bit more oriented towards, not entirely, but if you look at sort of the 400 or 500 companies on the floor, I bet 80% are like earlier stage. So what's going to make a company stands out is those with the most active drill programs and results. And then I think, like I should say, the ones who use tools like ours, whether it's Prospector or VRIFY, sure, it's going to make you stand out. But it really comes down to like fundamentally good stories and just finding good ways to tell them. So what you're going to see is, as you always do, there's a big conference in Florida right now, and then there's the PDAC conference. You'll see a massive flow of news because everybody likes to put their news out during these conferences, which is difficult because it can be overwhelming. So I would guess on Monday morning, you're going to see 30 or 40 companies come out with really exciting drill results and other things like that. And I think those, a lot of the times, those will be the ones that kind of get the most attention at their booths and so on.
That's great. Yeah, we do keep track of news releases and stuff on Prospector, and we're already seeing so many come through. And I really like that you can, like with our Prospector platform, filter them out, so I can always see what's exciting to me, etc. Small plug there. Can investors access 3D content on their own? Isn't it hard to interpret?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So, and it's something we've gone through. So, like all the content we do with VRIFY, think of VRIFY as sort of like an interactive PowerPoint. So if the company chooses to publish it like a PDF of their investor deck to their website, they can also do the same with VRIFY. All of their interactive content's on verify.com. But what we've also found is that when you put something into 3D and then allow somebody to just click through it, it can often be quite confusing, because the nice thing about any sort of PowerPoint or anything is it's very linear and it's easy to sort of stay within the lines and get the narrative. So what we're doing is more and more companies are actually recording themselves and creating walkthroughs of their interactive presentations. And we're finding that like we're seeing way more engagements on that side to have somebody walk you through. Because if I just sent you a link to the same content that I just took you through, I'm not there annotating and speaking to it and so on. It's not the same effect. So I think what you're going to see more and more of is companies actually walking through their interactive content and then sharing a link. So if somebody wants to go through afterwards, they can, with the understanding that you were able to give to them through that walkthrough. And that walkthrough might be sort of the floating head video walking through, might just be subtitles, whatever it is. But yeah, we're spending a lot of time right now trying to kind of help understand what is the perfect, like how much information is the right amount and not too much information. And it's in there somewhere. The beauty of it is, though, is as people go through these presentations, we always ask for feedback at the end, similar to like you stay at a vacation rental and you kind of give a review. And all of that, as we continue to get more and more volume going through our content, we're learning a ton about what people actually want to see and specifically what they don't want to see, which is really driving how we're building our content and these interactive presentations going forward.
Awesome. So I know I dropped my email in the chat here, but what is the best way to contact VRIFY for more information?
Just info@verify.com, and it's
All right.
VRIFY, VRIFY. There's no E in it. I can't afford it. Someday.
Is that the reason why there's no E in it?
No, we used to do virtual reality, so we thought it was
Mm.
this really clever VRIFY, and then after like 6 months, we realized like nobody wants to go into a boardroom and put on headsets and we could maybe one day we bring back the virtual reality, which would make our name make more sense, but in the meantime, no.
I think it's great. Although I personally would love to go into a boardroom and look at rocks, but I'm gonna go ahead and drop that info at VRIFY into the chat for everybody who, oh, there we go. And Alex is on top of it as well. Awesome. So cool. I'm glad everything was clear, everybody. It's my first time at PDAC this year. I know I'm super excited. Steve, I'm excited to meet you in person and the rest of your team, of course. Is there any other questions or any other points you want to make, Steve? I think we've covered everything on the prospector side. No,
just for everyone going to PDAC and enjoy it. It's sort of, we spent a few years without being able to do in-person conferences and so on. And it's, so for me, one of the most valuable things I find at PDAC is just sort of stand at the end of this aisle of like 30, 50, 100 companies yelling at investors trying to figure out what they're doing and so on, and just kind of take it in. Like I find just observing and sort of people watching through it is highly entertaining and informative. So I just encourage everyone to take a minute and just enjoy that side of it as well. And then for all the companies, I think everyone gets so hyper focused on finding investors, but it's actually really worth it to spend some time on the vendor side of the hall as well, because you can learn a lot about the industry and cool technologies and other things that might apply to where your business is at. So yeah, it's always worth it to go spend an hour or two walking over there.
Yeah, I second that. I went to SME a lot in college, and I know one of the best conferences I went to, I already had an internship and everything, so I wasn't like looking for anything in particular. And I just strolled the booth, and it was amazing to see all the different things coming out. So super excited about that. Awesome. Well, I don't see any other questions coming in, so I'm going to go ahead and I'll stick on for a few more minutes. Steve, if you want to stick on as well or hop off, I know you've got another conference happening, just in case there's any other questions coming in. But thank you all so much for joining us. We are excited to see you all at PDAC or other mining conferences.
Perfect. I'll jump off here, but thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thanks everybody.
Bye, everybody.